Hey, Sox fans. Welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, a local fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast, hosted by Nick Borowski and Pat Hester.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. It's episode 324. I am Nick Borowski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast live on our YouTube channel. Here as we wrap up 2025. Wow, it is finally over. We are going to celebrate that and try to make sense of what we experienced. We talked a little fan-centric stuff last week, maybe a little bit more about the team this week. Thank you so much for being with us live. You can find the podcast, the audio version, of course, everywhere you find your podcasts. Already so great to hear from Sydney, Steve, Peyton, John jumping in live here on this Sunday night. With me, as always, my best friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, happy Sunday. Happy, final episode of the regular season. So excited to spend this Sunday night with you. And what a weekend if you're a sports fan. And if you're not a sports fan, not sure why you'd be listening to this show, but Sox win their 60th game. You get a big Bears win. If you're an Illini fan, what a fantastic game against USC. Wow, ILL. And if you're a golf fan, you got some, well, even though the U.S. got dominated, some Ryder Cup action in there. Yeah. A great Oregon and Penn State game. Who was else? Georgia and Alabama. It was a wild sports.
How are you knowing your schedule? How are you knowledgeable of all of those things going on? There's no way you were able to consume that much sport.
Well, the internet helps.
The
internet helps. I watched I watched a little of the Sox game on my phone today via the ESPN app, as I normally do, from a softball field in Crown Point, Indiana. So that's what my Sunday was like. And then got home just in time to see a Bears win, right as the blocked field goal happened.
Yes,
and I did watch most of the Illini USC game. So. And the Illini brought to you by Flight by Yingling, by the way, if you didn't know that. Big Illini fan right now in my house. Anywho, great weekend for sports. I know you're ready to really dive into everything Chicago White Sox, break down all the stats from this full year, as you were probably typing away on your computer, everything you could think of. Feverishly. We're just ready to break it all down, and I'm here for you, my man.
Yeah, you got me. I love the passion, baby. I love it. It's hey, we got to 60. We got to 60 wins, which
you know what it reminded me of, and I don't mean to cut you off. Do you remember the movie Along Came Polly?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And Ben Stiller he's in the love making scene, and he's counting in his head to try and get to 60. He doesn't quite get there, unfortunately, for Ben. But we did. The White Sox lasted.
We 60. Did.
It was amazing. Good for
us.
And
there were a lot of naysayers early on, and
me being one of them. By the way, I didn't think this would happen.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought they were going to take over. I didn't have him at 60. I had him somewhere in the low 50s, maybe 53. I'll have to go back to the tapes, but hey, I wanted to avoid 100 losses. Something about that psychologically, I just means really nothing, as Pedro Grifol would tell you years ago. But I wanted to get away from that 100. But hey, to have 60. That's not bad. That's not a bad win turnaround. Still pathetic to lose 100 games again, but when you look at it and you try to compartmentalize, I think you can kind of be happy. Does that make sense at all?
I'm ecstatic at 60. I was sitting out again talking to a couple Sox fans at a softball tournament today. And one of the dads said, great guy. But he said, and then he goes, well, it's nice, but this team's probably going to lose 100 games again next year. And I said, in my best Lee Corso impersonation, not so fast. I don't think so, friend. Look out.
I don't think they will either. I don't think they're going to lose. I would say that they lose. Oh boy,
Nick, I'm going to go way out of.
Boy,
and
72 and
I'm
90.
out
Can
of
I
the
say
limb.
72 and 90? Is that?
I'm going 81 and 81. I'm going.
No,
to
you're not. You're not.
Get out. Look out.
81 and 81.
Yes. Well, you heard it. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm
Yeah,
really
I'll tell you
excited
what's
to be
wrong
here.
with you. You are on some sort of sports happy juice. You've consumed way too much sports this weekend, and you have somehow gone insane a little bit. Hey, I love it though. I absolutely love it, and I might talk myself into 81 by the time Thanksgiving rolls around, but I don't think so right now, sir.
I think maybe I was one of those walks that you suggested people take in the desert and take
Oh, sure.
some highly illegal drugs
peyote,
and find yourselves and
an acid trip.
yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what I did this weekend, Nick. Who knows?
Well, sometimes when people, what's big right now, I'm hearing are like these detoxes. They're trying to get all these toxins out of their bodies, and they
Right.
go on these whether you're in some sort of homemade sweat lodge or something, you're trying to get all these toxins out. And sometimes you have these clairvoyant, these really amazing experiences. So I don't know. Look, it was hot this weekend. So if you're
Yeah.
outside baking at softball tournaments and
Yeah.
if something happened to you, you might have been on one of those pseudo types of journeys. But hey, that 81, that's right now, that's the first prediction I have heard about 2026 is 8. So that's, you're kind of the leader in the clubhouse. You're the only one.
Well, I'm a leader in
clubhouse
clubhouse of saying something ridiculous, but I mean, write it down in pen somewhere, Nick. Put it next to your favorite bobblehead, and then next year when we
I
pick up the
will.
mics again and get ready to
Yeah.
talk baseball, you can go.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Pat, after you saw nothing about what the offseason is going to bring,
Right.
this is what you predicted. Let's
Yeah.
go back to the tape. We say that a lot also by that. We say, well, let's go back to the tape. We've never gone back to any tape ever. So it'd be the first time that we've done that.
This is worth going back though to dig up an 81 and 81 prediction hours after the season's ended. And that's with really nothing to go on except just cunning guile and just gumption.
That's kind of how I'm going to roll into next year. I'm just going to be feet first, all in, happy and positive. Patty, here
now
we
be
go.
Be careful because I did that on Lockdown one year about Andrew Vaughn, and it was like January 2nd, and I put out a podcast like the year of Andrew Vaughn, and I did 30 minutes just on Andrew Vaughn, and that went horribly wrong. So sometimes you can will things into existence. That one didn't work well for me, but maybe this 81 and 81, maybe it's a different story.
You were just too early on an Andrew Vaughn.
That's true. Wrong city, wrong situation. It'll be interesting to see what he does at the postseason.
So you weren't wrong, Nick. You were just way ahead of your time,
which
like
is
most geniuses are.
Correct. And that's not the first time that's happened. So I'm glad you
called you a genius. Anybody's called you a genius. That's not the first time.
But ahead of my time. Of my time.
Okay,
I think people are wanting to know, is there a relation to Devin Hester, Pat? You don't have a relation to Devin Hester.
Is Peyton? Sadly, no.
There's you have a Hester jersey. Your whole family has Hester jerseys.
I do. We all do, but we all have the same last name. So
that's true. That makes sense.
Devin is you could say that maybe, I don't know, but not that I'm aware of. No relation that I'm aware of.
Sydney wanted to know what my prediction of bobblehead giveaways. I have no idea where their marketing plans are going to go and how what you're gonna do, what you're gonna celebrate. There might have been 8. Is that right? 8 or 9
this year? There was 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So I'd have to say less than. I'd have to use the math symbol of less than.
Yeah. Yes. I would say less than that. I'll put it at 5. And I am going to say right now there's going to be a Colson Montgomery bobblehead.
There probably will be at least 3.
That seems aggressive, but it's not unusual. Maybe 2. You know what? I'll say here, I'll double down a Colson Montgomery in the latest City Connect unis.
Okay.
The red, the Bulls, the Jerry Reinsdorf jerseys.
The Jerry's.
The Jerry's. Yeah, you'll get somebody in the Jerry's, and you might as well put it as a Colson Montgomery. I mean, the dude, we'll talk about what you're going to take away from this season, but it's like, I think option 1, 2, and 3 was Colson Montgomery, but everybody's got their own opinion. I mean, let's like, the reality of it is the 100 losses. I hate to bring us down from this 81
Wow.
and 81.
Here we go.
Lather,
Negative Nick, positive Patty. How will this show happen?
Oh, Sydney, a Pope bobblehead. Now you got me thinking, man. Now you got me thinking. Have what you really need to do. That's what you need. Pope bobblehead for sure. Look, man, have you heard the stat on this? Maybe you did. How many times the Sox have lost 100 games in their 125-year history? Do you know that number? Did you hear it?
I didn't hear that number. Can I take a guess?
Please. I'd love for you to.
All right. Well, obviously this year and last year.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did they do it during the most recent rebuild before the juggernaut team that they had in the teen years? Probably at least twice. So that's 4. I'll say they've lost 100+ games 8 times in their history.
That's a heck of a guess. And way to think that out. 7 times.
So
and they've done it now 3 in a row. And they've done it. So this is our 7th season doing Good Guys Talk Back. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is our 7th season. And 3 of those seasons have been 300 losses.
It's awesome.
It has
we're
been
not helping.
It has been really a passion project, as anybody will tell you that covers this team. Whether you make a little bit of money off of it, we do not. But I know that there's a lot of for-profit podcasts out there, and of course, the folks that do this for an actual living, the Merkins and. Obviously Chuck and Ozzy and, people that are doing this. And even if you're, just following this team, it's not like you got a mic or anything in front of you. You're just following it closely. That wears on you. I don't care if you love it or not, but damn, I mean, 3 straight years now with 100 losses. I think they only did it once in the last rebuild era.
Okay.
There was what was it? 2016?
Something like that.
No, 2018. I want to say that might have been their 100 loss season. But do you feel it? I mean, did this one not feel as bad because you didn't watch as many games?
It doesn't. No, it only feels not as bad because of the improvement from last year. And last year was such a gut punch on most sense, because it wasn't just the losses, Nick. It was the way they lost, the cartoonish ways that they lost, the exhaustion that you would feel from a Pedro Grifol on a night in, night out basis, how ridiculous he was. And then you rewind a little bit to the Tony era, when it was national news, when he's making really head scratching decisions in games that, again, he finished with, a 90 win season and a 500 season. So, Tony, I think we could have done worse, but it was just all of that. Right. And it culminated with last year. And it was the expectations not being met, the injuries, then you have the Tony thing and the issues there, and the sell the team and all the things that kind of culminated with last year. It was like almost in a bad way, explanation. You know what I mean? The line with the dot under it, explanation point. And I just feel so much of a relief this year, almost like that chapter is closed, right? The embarrassment chapter has been closed, and a new chapter has been opened of hope. And that's where I'm at, is the hope chapter. And I got to tell you, I like the direction of the team. They're not embarrassing. They're losing yes, they've lost a lot of games, but again, we've talked about the number of games, and they lost another 1-run game on Saturday. The number of 1-run losses, I think they had one in New York as well. They lost by a run.
Yeah, that was
so again.
gut-wrenching.
You add those up, and I snapped something to you that I saw on Facebook.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe I don't know if we're going to talk about letter grades or not.
Go ahead. Yeah,
cover that, but I can't remember where this was, but we're not a licensed show by any means, so I don't have to give like credit to anybody. I can just read things and say I don't really know where this came from.
Yeah.
It was on Facebook, so let's try and find it. They basically the moral of the story is this: whoever this was gave the Sox a letter grade of a C this year, and I thought, wow, that's pretty fantastic, and didn't see that coming. How could you give this team a C? But I'm going to read this to you, Nick. Normally, I don't really read a lot, but I think it was interesting,
I love that.
And it was enough to kind of get me to read 2 paragraphs for me was something.
I was just about to say, if it got you to read something, there must have been a good hook.
So again, not sure who put this out there, so forgive me, and if you find me, just know that we don't get paid and we're not licensed by any means. So but anyway, White Sox letter grade is a C. Yes, it might be another 100 loss season for the White Sox, but it's still a 20-win improvement with a corresponding 200 plus improvement in the run differential from last year's embarrassing mega disaster. In fact, the 14-34 record in 1-run games in 2025 shows that the White Sox were more than competitive than their win-loss record suggests. More importantly, the integrated and promising group of rookies into the lineup throughout the season, Colson Montgomery, Kyle Teal, Edgar Carroll, and Chase Mydroth, have each produced more than 1.5 WAR, the first team with a 4 rookie position players with at least a 1.5 WAR since the 1946 Reds. Rookies Shane Smith and Shane Burke also held down the rotation spots for much of the season. Hey, it's something to build upon. The White Sox appeared headed in the right direction. So again, I normally don't read to people on this show, but I just did, and I didn't have my glasses on, so forgive me for my stumbling. But listen, those are the kind of things that, like, when there's people that really analyze the team and they don't just look at the 100 losses again and they go, okay, let's dig a little deeper and find out the why. And again, we've said it since the All-Star break. We've said it before the All-Star break. This feels different. Something's different here. This doesn't seem like same old, same old. That's why I'm willing to put my stones on the table and say 81-81, because I'm telling you, Nick, this division, we've talked about it for years, is not anything that I think is special until you get to August, and then Cleveland all of a sudden decides to just beat the hell out of everybody and get into the playoffs somehow. So again, I'm very, very optimistic, as you can tell by a lot of what I just read, and just I feel it's moving into a different time for us.
Yeah, that's worth the read, and you did send that to me, and I thought that was an appropriate grade and an exciting grade based on kind of what we've been dealing with. And I want to go back a little bit to some of the things that you were saying, about that last kind of chapter, so to speak, that disappointing chapter being really closed, the chapter of the previous rebuild, all of the expectations, all of the prognosticators, predicting the Sox to do this and to do that, and the success that we're going to have because of Tim Anderson and Yohan Moncada and Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease and Giolito and on and on and on. And I think that it was so disappointing because the expectations were so high. We really felt like, okay, we were going to eat it for a while here. We saw what other teams, not only in our division, but in the same town, have done with, kind of tanking, and then how they've been able to skyrocket and kind of short-lived Royals and Cubs, but it worked. Now, obviously, it's, the masterminds behind that were very different in those organizations. We didn't quite have that foresight. We definitely didn't have the capital infusions, at least in the right way. Money was spent, but the way it was allocated, I just don't think it was the right way. that's closed. That's closed. And I like kind of how you said that, because, it sucks to lose 100 plus games again, but I didn't really have any expectations, and I thought it was going to be worse, and it wasn't as embarrassing. I didn't feel, the play was embarrassing at times. The defense was like, what are we doing? But there was that, that sense of trending in the right direction, the sense like, okay, these guys we've been hearing about can actually play, and the lights aren't too bright, and okay, I think we might have got more than a decent exchange for Garrett Crochet and Colson Cole. I think Colson Montgomery is just an unbelievable story for what he's been. Lenine Sosa, and then you talked about Smith, who pitched today, 6 innings, 0 earned runs, 8 strikeouts, 0 walks. I think he might have been perfect through 5,
I believe, and
through 5. Wow,
I think maybe 5 1/3 before he gave up a pretty weak single to the right, the right field. But it almost looked like, I mean, he was dominant. I watched the highlights, this evening just to kind of get caught up on what did happen in today's game, and he was pretty dominant. But I also don't know if the Washington Nationals were just ready for the year to be over too.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
let's just swing and let's get it out of here as soon as humanly possible. But still, it shouldn't take away from how he pitched today, which was, pretty dominant and using the fastball very effectively.
Yeah, and you bring up the division in Cleveland, and I had some folks from the neighborhood, some neighborhood friends come on over. We were watching the Bears game, and our kids got to play, and one of my neighbor friends is a Cubs fan, and and he made the point, and he went to the place that we went to last week, and that we've been going to for a long period of time during these 7 years, and it's been brought up by our organization. You're in the AL Central, you should be competitive. Nobody is running away with that division ever in the off season. Like, you should be able to get back into it. And I said, yeah, I mean, that's what Sox fans have been talking about for years. We discussed it at length last episode. And you texted me earlier this week about, any solace, I guess, in like Detroit just completely imploding, even if it's the hands of Cleveland. Cleveland is just so frustrating to me because, and Howard brought it up in the chat, the suspension of Clase and trading Bieber, and this is what they do.
Yep.
They just willingly let people go, knowing, like, you talk about Stones, man, knowing that they've got the ability as an organization to just get right back in it. Like, they're a machine, and erasing what that lead that the Tigers had. Wow, man.
The Tigers had a 15 and a half, maybe 15 game lead on September 6th. A 15 game lead. Now you and I and everybody here lived almost an epic collapse in 2005 as we celebrate that
at the hands of Cleveland.
At the hands of Cleveland. Luckily it didn't come to full fruition that it was the disaster. It was the greatest thing in the world. But I put myself in a Tigers fan's shoes for a moment, and the Tigers did get into the playoffs. I don't know what happened today, who ended up winning the division, but let's just put it this way. If that's you and I, and we're living through that and doing this show, and it's the White Sox being chased down and losing our lead to the Indians, we may be in like asylums, to be honest with you. I don't know if I could have made it through that. First of all, you would have probably committed a crime of some sort. I may have had some type of artery issue that put me in the hospital.
Local podcasters, one with an artery issue, one in jail. More on that at 10. It's very likely that I would have, at least admitted myself into a facility for at least 48 hours just so I could be monitored. I need to be in a jacket in a padded area away from just sharp things, for sure.
Just like, please don't let any kind of electronical device be around me that I can check a score. I don't want to know what's going on in the outside world. Just feed me through a straw and
one of those Hannibal Lecter masks on for just all for precaution purposes.
I don't think I could have handled it, honestly. I mean, I remember the way I felt in 05 is that lead that we had for the entire season shrunk. What did it get down to, a game or 2 games? Whatever it was.
Was it 2.5 games or was it less than that? It was scary. It was absolutely scary.
So I think I remember coming home from work, and that was when I was much younger, and I'd be kicking things and throwing things, and
Howard says 1.5 games.
I don't want to live that again. Please, for the love of everything good and pure. Like I'd love to be in a race again, but not when you're got a huge lead and you give it all back in the last month. That would be just unbearable.
Well, then that's the age-old question, is it better to have been in that type of race and lost than to have never been in a race?
I don't know. I don't know, man. I really don't know. If that happens and we lose a playoff spot after having the lead for that long, for that large of a lead, like if it's a 5-game lead and you're going to September and you lose it, okay, then I can deal with that. But if it's a 15 or double-digit lead going into late September or early, whatever it is, September, and you give it all back, I don't know if I want to live that.
It's
life.
Never fun, though. I mean, think back to 2012. Robin Ventura's first year as manager. A lot of Aussie guys still around. Aussie ball still kind of a thing. That team played really well and was an exciting team most of the summer. And in September, things looked really good. I think they were ahead of Detroit, and they let Detroit back in. They collapsed. Just ran out of gas the last couple of weeks of September. That was really painful, and I just think anytime, but yeah, I get your point. That is, I don't think you can get out of your own way when it starts tumbling like that. You start believing into it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the fact that, because we've seen this happen before, we as fans started believing it. I know I did. I'll admit that when the Sox that lead was tumbling in 05, I didn't submit it to anybody. All the stuff I was getting at work from Cub fans, and I tried to, still showing up in the Sox jacket. I was still, but in places that I didn't want to talk about, I was, oh man, we had a pretty good season. That was at least fun, but this just feels like, we're doomed here.
Yeah. Well, excuse me. You got me sneezing over here. I'd love to, I guess it would be nice to be talking possible playoffs again.
Of course.
Under losses. Yeah. So I guess I'll take the, give me a chance, I guess.
Well, if you're just jumping in here, if you're jumping in on Sunday night to the YouTube channel, Pat has the Chicago White Sox in 2026 as 81-81. That's an early prediction, a very early prediction. And there was some stuff from Josh Barfield, who's the assistant general manager. He was talking it up this past weekend about the White Sox and what is to come with this team. And here's a quote from Mr. Barfield. Expectations coming into next year is to continue to push this thing forward. There's no moral victories in this game. In the end, it comes down to wins and losses. You come into the year and the goal is to win. I think we'll see the strides that some of these guys are able to make next year. We'll be able to add to this team in the offseason. I definitely think the bullpen is a big area We are kind of evaluating that market. I think you've seen it from some of the teams that have made late pushes this year in the playoff race. Young players come up and get opportunities to contribute. We are excited about this group that we come up this year. We are excited about the group behind them that has the chance to touch it next year. That was Josh Barfield, assistant general manager. It is, in my mind, in my fan mind, very important to acknowledge what's coming up from behind there with, our farm system. What was it, Birmingham with a championship? Lots to celebrate there. I'm not trying to be cynical. I've seen it before, man. I've seen success in the farm system. And we've had this conversation before of like, look what's coming up the pipeline. Watch out. You can't rest on that. That shouldn't be your only strategy in the offseason, is to develop the farm system. Like, yes, there's going to be maturation. That's normal. Hopefully it's more than average. And these guys that had big jumps this year continue that, but you have to go and add outside your system, and you've got to zero in on some areas. Absolutely the bullpen. Get a horse in the rotation, see if you can pick up a bat. All that is obviously depending on their goals with a lockout looming and the whole capital infusions plan. But, Barfield didn't say anything that I didn't expect, but I'm glad that there's some chatter about positivity in 2026, because that's where this organization should be thinking, build on this right now.
Well, I think it's interesting. He starts out his comment with the biggest lie I've ever heard from anybody in organizations is we go into every year with the goal is to win. And I don't think that's really been the goal of the last couple of years. That's a big fat lie. So I hate when people do that, because if that was really your goal, you would act accordingly and you would do different things to try and win on a year in and year out basis. So don't tell me the last couple of years the goal has been to win, because that's not the case. Your goal was to bottom it out and try and build it from nothing to something. So but yeah, that's fine. I worry a little bit about, and I get why. And I was talking with my father-in-law about this today, and he mentioned, you'd use some bullpen help. And I said, yeah, that's true. But me, I'm very skittish about going out and getting the best name bullpen guys and paying them a lot of money. It just, it never seems to work out. But it's almost to the point where you have to, because it's so seemingly barren there. And then that's where we've lost so many games this year, is in the bullpen that I think you almost have to. You're kind of painted yourself into that corner. You've got to pay for a bullpen. But you do have, it's not like you're up against it with your salary. I don't know what the projected salary of this team is going to be in 2026. I can't imagine it's going to be any higher than it was this year. It'll probably be less. So, okay, you've got money to spend, and if you do want to give yourself a chance, you've got to get better in that area. So, I guess that's where you have to go. But I guess my question to you, Nick, is how do you replace Michael Taylor? He retired today.
He did. I'll always remember Michael Taylor in 2016. It was the Nats Cubs series, and Taylor hit a home run, I think, in Wrigley Field late in the game to beat the Cubs. And obviously they didn't win the series, but it forced like an extra game. And he was just always has a special place in my heart for causing pain and hurt to Cub fans at that time. Hey, I think DC has a special place in his heart, and he was very mindful and purposeful of announcing the retirement in Washington. And I had him penciled in as a a major contributor in 2026. He was going to start the season, and I had him leading a lot of offensive categories.
Well, you'll
as
have
well.
to erase that.
Yeah,
Good thing you wrote
I
it in
will.
pencil.
Mine is just in pencil, opposed to your 81 and 81 in permanent ink. Yeah, I mean, you look at a couple other guys that, you know, they limp to the finish line, and who knows what's going to happen. You know, Talkman is having surgery. It doesn't seem to be a huge deal, but he's going to be having surgery, I think, this week. Expected 5-week recovery period. Benintendi was shut down, I think, in New York. Robert limped to the finish line. No surprise there, but you know, there's some guys dealing with some stuff. We'll see how that happens or how that plays out in the offseason. Braden Montgomery and Noah Schultz dealing with some health stuff and issues down on the farm. But, you know, sticking with the positives, I mean, you are Mr. Run Diff. And that was really, I think, eye-popping when they talked about the run diff in that report card. I thought Smith obviously was a huge positive. I've been talking about it, and everybody else has Montgomery. I mean, what did he hit his 20th a couple days ago?
21, I believe, is what he finished the season.
Holy Christmas, man! I mean, come on! How do you? I would have never thought that, and that's just because I've been so trained to not get up for the letdown. You know, with guys that we've been hearing about. That is. I just hope there's not a sophomore slump. You know, I'm trying to say, I hope it's just, he just builds on this, and because he becomes somebody that we really get excited about.
Yeah. I mean, the arrow is pointing up for him, and it's, you know, he was red hot with putting the ball into the seats for a while, and then it seemed to cool off, but it wasn't like he wasn't producing or getting on base. And then he gets hot again. Right. And he's hitting, you know, in back-to-back games, and he just looks like a real dangerous hitter, Nick. And I'm excited to see how it goes, because there's enough on him, I think, to, you know, for the league to kind of make an adjustment to him. And there was some film out, and this is how you got to pitch this guy. And also he was hitting some tough lefties. It wasn't like it was all righty versus lefty situational hitting. It was, he was hitting, and in big moments. Think about that too. It wasn't just, okay, here's a solo home run in the 4th inning when you're down 7. You know, there were a lot of home runs taking the lead, you know, late in the games.
Oh yeah.
Game winners. So the time and place in which he would produce is as important to me than just the total number of home runs.
Yeah, Sydney brought it up in the chat, and Ozzy was talking about it in the post game, and Chuck Garfine put a post out on Twitter X, but you know, it was Montgomery and Vargas hustling down to first base while the Sox were up 8-0 is something I guess you can get excited about going into next year. On the surface, that doesn't get me very excited. A couple of guys hustling to first base, but in the context, being up 8-0, something we haven't really seen in years past, guys really going all out. There's been a lot of lackadaisical stuff, you know, a lot of yelling at the TV because guys are just dogging it. And to see that, I get where that post comes from. And like, I get where you could say, okay, here's a 100-loss team, a couple guys late in the game hustling down to first base with an 8-0 lead. They could easily just coast it. And you zoom in, man, you put that under the microscope and say, that's different. And if you could just kind of, that's a small thing to really create warmth over a dark, long off season. But there's a lot of other things though that you can put in that basket that'll keep you hopefully content and excited about 2026. I mean, I put Venable down as a positive. Is that, you know, a guy that lost 100 games but in his first year, he's part of the quote of the week, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But do you put him in the positive column?
Absolutely. I mean, because we didn't talk about him a lot, right? He was just, and that's how I think, especially a first year manager that's managing to bring guys along in the development stages of their career, right? This is a developmental stepping stone for a lot of these guys. And when he won, he didn't really have a choice, but he played young guys. He wasn't afraid to play young guys. He didn't, I don't think distract from their development. And you never heard of, and I'm sure there were, right, Nick? It happens in probably every baseball locker room, since the beginning of time, that guys, when you're around the same people every day, and you're with them as much as you are, I'm sure there's days or there's people you just don't like. I mean, there's people at work that maybe you don't get along with, but could you imagine seeing them every day, being as close as you are in those close quarters every day, and traveling with them every day, eating with them every day, and really never being able to get away from them? You never heard of anything, issues in the clubhouse, unless I'm crazy. I never heard anything. So everything seemed to be, in-house. It seemed to be controlled. Now, again, there's not probably a ton of big egos. There's not a lot of veterans on this team anymore, but I think the vibe that I get is a very positive one. The culture seems to be right there, and pointing out two guys that hustled down the first base when you're up 8-0 in the last game of the year, to me, maybe doesn't seem like that big of a deal. That's what you should do as a armchair baseball player that I am. But if it's important to Ozzie, then maybe we take notice. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Ozzie Guillen and the way he looks at baseball, and typically Ozzie's right about things. And if it's important enough for Ozzie to point out, then maybe it's something we take notice of, and maybe it's not just something to brush over and say that's not a big deal. To me, it tells a greater story of what's going on with this clubhouse, and how Wendell Venable hasn't been a perfect manager, but I think he's been the right manager for this situation. And I give him high marks for what he's done this year, because, you can only run with the horses you've been given. And I think there's only so many times you can go to that bullpen and hope that it's going to save you and work out well for you. But the other side of it, I'm very pleased with Will Venable.
If that bullpen was a little bit sturdier, and we could play this, this game, and every other team's doing it. Every other fan base, if they're saying goodbye to their team right now, they're doing this. If that would have went into a different direction. So I get it. We're not the only ones doing this, but you say like there was at least 10 wins, at least.
Mm-hmm.
That we left on the table because of the bullpen, at least. So you're looking at a 70-win team, potentially.
Yeah.
If they just would have been able to close down 10 games over a 162, over a 6-month stretch, just 10 wins. You think about that. So that's where you can only do what you can do as a manager when you go to that bullpen. And that's why Barfield is 100% correct. And that should be articulated and talked about. We are looking desperately for bullpen help. It matters. It doesn't have to mean you have to go high end, but you need to be very mindful and purposeful about your construction, because it's needed. It's desperately needed. I want to go back to, the Venable stuff. And, he wasn't here for the last, rebuild situation. Robert's the only one.
Yeah.
Maybe, you could put in Benintendi, but it was really Robert that was part of that core, back then, when we were supposed to be a juggernaut, not only in the AL Central, but in all of the American League. So these guys, they don't know any better. And that's how it should be. Don't let someone else write the narrative. in this whole 125 year and all of the nostalgia and the 20th anniversary of the '05, these guys, these kids playing for the Sox in 2025, they don't even know that stuff.
Yeah.
And what Venable really hopefully was doing is what I think a good manager does is block all that noise out.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, none of that stuff and, losing another 100, you weren't part of those 100 loss teams. You weren't part of all the failings from the last rebuild. This is not on you. Okay. You need to be laser focused and almost have tunnel vision, in a myopic sense of this is right now.
Yeah.
You can't control anything from the past with this organization. Neither can I. Like, we're playing for today and hopefully, for tomorrow. And that's what I think good managers can do is they can really obviously motivate and control personalities, but keep guys in that mental state of here, present. Don't read into all this other stuff that you have no control over. So
yeah. And I think about it. I think back to the times when you and I would talk about Tony, and the conversation was, well, how many games can Tony win us as a manager with his decision making? Well, Will won us, these many games because of his decision making. But I can tell you, he didn't lose any games for us. I don't think there's any games that you could point to and go, boy, we lost that game because Will Venable was just bad tonight. Maybe I'm wrong because I didn't get a chance to watch every game, but
there were a handful where I was like, okay, that might have been a first year manager kind of thing. The way they operated sometimes in extra innings, I just still to this day.
Well, the extra inning things that has been a carryover that needs to get better. Like that. Okay, I'll if I was Will Venable's manager, like I'd have his monthly one-on-one. I'd say this is what I'd like you to get better at is extra innings. These are the rules of extra innings. You understand them, correct? Right? Do your players understand them? And when you're at home, we really have the advantage. We really should win more games than we lose at home in extra innings. So, but I that all being said, maybe I'm sure he did contribute in losses, but again, there's not anything that I would go, wow, what a stupid thing. I'm an idiot that watches baseball just for fun. What a moronic move. How could you ever do that? I don't feel like I had those moments.
I agree with you. And when the Sox hired Pedro and things got off to just a horrible start, and obviously we know what happened in 2024, and he was relieved, as we all were relieved. I said, Ozzie could have done better than this. Yeah, Pedro had garbage to work with, but it's like he made the garbage even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought Ozzie could at least got something out of this garbage, something better than what Pedro was doing. I don't know if Ozzie could have done any better than what Will Venable did. I honestly don't. Maybe, maybe some of the extra inning stuff, maybe a couple like on the fringe things here and there, maybe, I don't know. Would have Ozzie been a little too critical on some of the young guys? Probably not. So I'm fine. I'm fine with what Will Venable did. I really am.
I'll ride with Will.
I put marketing down as a positive as well. We discussed it a lot last week, but I was really impressed with what the Sox did for this 125 year and this 20th anniversary. Aside from retiring Guillen's number, which should absolutely that's what you do in 2026, and maybe even Jose Abreu. Maybe you have, he came back a couple weeks ago throughout the first pitch. A lot of love from him, a lot of love, talking about Chicago as his home and, all that kind of good stuff. I think that might be the beginning to maybe a formal jersey retirement, but you got to do Ozzie first. I thought what marketing did this year, I was pretty impressed. It was I don't want to say it was a layup, but in a year where we knew they were going to be losing a lot of games, you had some anniversaries and you had a lot of nostalgia to lean into. And they got the assignment right, I thought. So I was impressed by that. Now, with your, your prediction of 81 and 81, are you thinking are you going to really be trying to get a hold of watching the games maybe then next year? Is that going to be a focus for you this offseason?
Nick, never say never. I mean, there's a possibility. I've got several months to consider it. Maybe we'll see.
Okay.
If you're asking me like today, if I'm going to get, the Chicago Sports Net in some way, shape, or form, I don't even know how we would do it right now. I guess because I'm a Hulu subscriber. I don't even know how to do that because I'm a moron. I guess it's just you get the app, put it on the smart TV, and boom, there it is. But yeah, I don't know.
You got some months. You got some time.
I have months to consider it. It's an interesting thought because I sometimes sit around wondering, what do I really watch? I watch football right now, and I can get football, and that's about it. Okay. Can I find a way? Possibly. We'll see. Maybe I'll just come over and watch every game with you, Nick.
I would love that, and I think that could be a goal for us. We can work something out, I think. That would be. I
wonder at what point would Adrian, your lovely wife, get sick of me knocking on the door? I'm like that guy from, you remember those frozen food commercials, the Encore commercials, and Al was in the, and I'll be over at 7, and here I am with a meatloaf ready to eat with you and watch the White Sox game.
That's next level. We watch every game together and we do meatloaf and Encore meals. That would be something else. Sirloin.
Let's see how fat Pat Nick can get during the season.
When I haven't done I haven't done a White Sox trip with people in several years. I think 2021 was the last time. Just life has gotten so crazy and it's really tough to get people to commit. And we went out to Pittsburgh in 2021, my brother and a bunch of other friends and we did this trip for a long, long time. It's traveled all over the country for, oh my goodness, 14, 15 years. And so we had a good run and we used to joke around about, is it possible to do a 162, get a camper, get an RV, and could you see every single game, if you had the ability, just completely hey, I'm taking a sabbatical from work and pretty much and this was before we had a lot of responsibilities with our person.
Apparently nobody had anything to do.
So we're like, is it possible? And I'd have to look at the schedule. I don't know if they would go West Coast to East Coast or vice versa, in a day or two, that you just wouldn't be able to do it with an RV. But you get 6 or 7 guys, pulling shifts behind the wheel. That would be one heck of a season.
That's a cool document. Somebody should hire us and pay us money to do that so we can.
That was my pitch. Was what I was gonna pitch. And then you could use it as alternate program. Here was another idea I had before we wrap this thing up. I had an idea since I would be going to all these away games all over to see the Sox, pitching an idea, and this would really be rain delay theater, is you have a little mini series about each city that the Sox visit. So folks are, traveling to Boston or, Cleveland or Detroit or Baltimore. It's here are a couple Sox fans, and we're going to take you through, kind of the dime tour of what you should do, where to eat, where to drink, a tour of the stadium, kind of get you excited if you ever wanted to take the act on the road and go see the Sox somewhere else. So those are a couple ideas I had if I could ever get somebody to listen and I could pitch those, because you need programming. These types of networks need that type of alternate programming.
Yeah, I think that's one hell of an idea. You are nothing if you're not an idea man, Nick.
I'm always thinking about things, and it's just, I feel like that would be interesting, instead of another infomercial about some kind of juicer or something that, the channels put on. It's like, here's something that you might enjoy watching. So
I think
anyway,
that would be
yeah.
great. I think that'd be
Well,
great. Yeah, Peyton does want me to do the 999 challenge at your home, which I don't
oh
know that
yeah.
you want me to be at your home. You probably want me to be outside.
No, I'd put down plastic sheathing, and I would make sure it's all.
Would you tape up the walls too, like they do for celebrations in the locker room?
It would be like a Gallagher concert, and no one understands that reference. But if you watch Comedy Central in the early '90s, you'd know the Gallagher reference. I'd be wearing a poncho. We would have just, plastic everywhere. It'd be all good.
Part of me thinks I could do that, but I know it'd be extremely hard. And I know that you don't partake anymore, but in your younger days, could you have done a 999 challenge?
Absolutely. And I should have.
You think so?
No, I shouldn't talk like that, because I'm glad where I'm at, but and it would have proved nothing and probably have caused problems. But I could have done it easily.
I think the hot dog part would be the hard part.
Hello. Yeah,
No, I'm just saying. I mean, it's a lot of hot dog and bun and everything like that. It's a lot.
It is, but it's you've got a beverage. It's interesting. I'd like to. I will do some NAs, and we could try it. I'm absolutely. I want to have a live event next year. We've been talking about live events. There's a theater in my area where I live that I'm going to try to talk to somebody and say, hey, can I do a live event? We'll do a live podcast in person. Everybody shows up, and then it'll be probably like a road game, and we'll have the game on a big screen in the theater, and it's just a watch party. Then we just stick around and we watch a Sox game. That's my goal for 2026.
And then I get up there and do the 999 challenge.
Well, there you go. You're doing the 999 as the game's going on, and people can join in.
What was the name of the theater that Kramer helped restore in Seinfeld? And that was in Jerry had the big glasses and the gum. Oh gosh, I can't remember.
Boy.
That's what I'm picturing. Is like this old timey theater, and then you and I had two boobs up on stage doing our show, and I'll be the circus act of eating and drinking on their stage.
Oh, the name is right in the front of my brain, and I can't think now, and it's going to bug me now that you brought that question up.
Well, I'll look it up while you're gonna be probably starting to close the show. There's a quote of the week.
So there's a couple theaters. I mean, the Ramova in Bridgeport, which the folks from All Sports Scene, they do a great job. They just celebrated their 100th show, and they did I think a live show at the Ramova. I know, I think the 108 have done stuff, maybe Sox Machine. They had part of Sox Fest at the Ramova. That's an option maybe, but there's one locally by me out here in the southwest suburbs, that it's called the Roxy. And I think we could probably make that work. Folks from the area.
It was the Alex, by the way, the Alex.
Oh man. You just needed to give me a little bit more time.
That's all right. Well, we don't have much time.
Peyton had it. Peyton had it.
Oh, good on you, Peyton.
I love the people that this community here that we have rubbed shoulders with for so many seasons. Pat and I have talked about this. This decision does not come easy, but we felt, after another 100 loss season, we're going to just take some time off in October, and we're going to just cool things off, take a break. We tend to take a week or so off after a season, and then we get back in, and we're just going to kind of pump the brakes. We're going to rest during October, enjoy the postseason separately, unless something big happens, unless some big news drops. But I'm thinking, Pat, Sunday, November 2nd, to come back ready to go. And I know that's probably the most time we've ever been away since we started this?
Well, what will happen in a month, Nick? I don't know. It'll be tough, but I think it's the right thing to do. I mean, there's not really going to be any news to cover. Normally, there would be a manager probably going to be fired, right? So
Yeah.
we'd be covering that. So I think this gives us a chance to just kind of sit back and watch the playoffs unfold, and there'll be a World Series team crowned. And then we can really start to look into what the offseason will bring, and maybe have a little bit more clearer picture of what teams will be thinking about doing in the offseason with the lockout looming, and really give ourselves a chance to bring something that's worth listening to, because that's what we want. We don't want to just come on here and talk about our favorite color. It's better when we have something to talk about. So it'll be tough, but it'll be a well-deserved rest for us.
Yeah. And again, we put a lot of thought into, just pumping the brakes. And, someone once told me, don't be quick to end anything. And I'm not talking about ending this podcast, but just to take a break sometimes, just slow down a little bit, and I think that's what, it's a grind, and it's been 3 rough years, but I just pumping the brakes a little bit in October, and we'll be back, in our normal off-season schedule, November 2nd. But Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. This has been such a joy connecting with you on a weekly basis, talking White Sox, trying to, Sox therapy, as we call it, working our way through this team. And I think so many people that I have met at the ballpark, whether it's the first time or the 20th time, and getting to talk White Sox with them, and appreciate the constant support. It means so much. And, I don't take it lightly at all. It's an honor, for you to give us your time, your valuable time, and hopefully it's been worthwhile, even though the outcome is not at all what we would like. Hopefully it's, this has brought some sort of joy to listen and hear and discuss White Sox as a community. You need to rub shoulders with like-minded people every now and then. And I think this has been really good for the soul.
Yeah, it's been, for me, it's always fun, Nick. Like I always say, we do this for us, and we're glad that people enjoy what we have to bring to the table. And we'll look to get 2026 off and running November 2nd.
Yeah. So this is a quote of the week from Will Venable, wrapping up this season. One thing I know about this group, you cannot put limits on them. As you get to the off season, you have no idea what that is going to look like. There's so much variability in development and how guys and groups come together that I don't have an answer other than I'm not going to put any limits on this team. You look at this year, and whatever you want to call this year, there was some successful things. One of the main reasons we can point to anything successful is this group got along with each other. That's going to be one of the most important things. Can we facilitate this group to come together and connect like they did this year? If that's the case, and we are able to do that, Venable added, then they can achieve anything they want. Woo! Thunder.
That'll get you, that gets you right into the offseason, ready for 2026, my man.
Yeah. I felt that was appropriate to tie things up. So, folks, thank you so very much for joining us. Subscribe, pass it along. Have a wonderful October. We'll be back November 2nd, ready to go. Pat, a pleasure, my friend.
Cheers to you, my friend. Cheers to everybody listening. And we'll see you in November.
Awesome. Hey, for Pat Hester, I am Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.